And I like to look at the book section, and in the book section, when they go through about the sixth or seventh page, it's always an author. And the author talks about what they like in books. And the question was asked, what book would you suggest that no one's ever heard of? Now, this was Nobel Prize winning author. Her name is Olga Tokarczuk, and she won it in 2018. So I was reading through and I saw there was a surrealist painter that wrote books. Not only wrote books, but she wrote plays. So this was the book, The Hearing Trumpet, and I brought it up for the book club that we had. It's a very interesting book, very strange, as you might guess, because it's a realist book. And it talks about a woman who's given a hearing trumpet. She's deaf. So she's given a hearing trumpet by her friend, and now she can hear the little conversations that are going on. And she's sent to an old folks home because her daughter and son-in-law don't want her around anymore. And she goes there, and there's all sorts of things that happen. People live in mushroom-shaped houses. They live in igloos, but those are the ones that they live in. And then, besides that, there's a picture in the dining hall of a nun that's waiting. And a lot of the story revolves around the waking nun. It's hard to hear. And it's amazing, the end of it. But anyway, so this is the hearing trumpet. I would suggest it, but what it got me doing was going to see how Leonora Carrington painted, that she also was a writer. And they did plays, they were even performed in New York. Leonora lived in this modest little house, modest little mansion in England. Her father was a textile man, and this was her home. So from a very early age, she was raised to be a member of the aristocracy. She was sent to 3 different Catholic schools because she kept getting thrown out. She was drawing on the walls and everything. But finally, she was sent to a proper school so she could learn how to be a lady. She was introduced. She even had tea at Buckingham Palace. So I mean, and she went to the Ascot races. She'd go to the hunts. She did all the things that she should have done. So this is where she lived. And some of the paintings, it actually showed up. I had a book here for the people that are here, and I suggest you look at Leonora Carrington's work. It tells a lot of stories in one painting. There's a lot of information in there, and I think you could come up with your own interpretation with each painting, because they go on and on. There again is the horses that she had. She, at 19 years old, she decided she was going to leave home, and actually the parents, they paid for a little bit of her schooling, but after that, they left her. She went to Paris, and she started to be surrealist. And she met them, and they actually had her as part of their shows from time to time. She suspected it. Had a great work. And that's paintings. Another one of her paintings was the bull in the front and the children.
Anyway,
She ran into Max Ernst, as many of the young ladies did. And she was 20 and that.
As it guarantees them.
And so you'll find that throughout this.
It's a pack. They
male surrealists ended up with the females. She ended up going to be with him, and when World War II broke out, he was Jewish, and he was German. So he was arrested in Paris. And when he was arrested, she left and she went to Spain. And she was put by her parents into a mental hospital for a while, then taken out. And she was going to be shipped to South Africa. And so they sent her over to Portugal to depart from there, and they sent her governor down to take care of her. Well, what she did was, while she was in Lisbon, she went into a glove shop. She said, I need to get some gloves. Then she said, and I have to use the lady. And she snuck out the back door, and she went to the embassy, the Mexico embassy. And she knew the man who was the ambassador to Mexico. So they did this from her spies and her parents. And she convinced him to let her go to Mexico. But she had to marry her in order to do that. So they got married, and she went to Mexico and spent many more years. She did come to New York and back. She spent many more years in Mexico. And were several other artists. This is Remedios Varo, and I think their work is similar, where Leonora Carrington tells you.
You don't ask about my day.
You really did turn into a girl, didn't you?
See? And you make jokes during my pain. You don't care about me at all.
All the advertising.
About you.
How much?
Does this have to be on? It's very disconcerting.
The people are coming on, we're muting them as they come on.
So anyway, this is called Still Life Revisited. And this is one of her paintings. She also was in Mexico at the time. She moved there from first she was in Spain too, and then she went to Mexico during World War II. Most of the people moved during World War II. This is the creation of the birds. And you can see them, well, unfortunately, I cut it off from time to time, but you can see that they come in the window and out of the egg and fly back out. She's actually one of my favorite surrealist painters. I like her work very much. And this is called Exploring the Orinoco. And I just like the way she paints. I think she paints beautifully. Now we're going to one that almost everybody knows. This is Frida Kahlo. She was the third one of the Mexican. And this is some drawings she did when she was young. When she was, well, first of all, she had polio. So she walked with a limp to begin with. And I'm trying to get the age. When she was in the bus accident. Anyway, she was in the bus accident with the guy she was going out with. I think she was around 15 at the time. And she broke so much, she broke her spine, her ribs, her collarbone, her pelvis, the shoulder, and the foot. And so a lot of her work is self-portraiture. And here's one of them. Now, when Andre Breton, the surrealist, came to Mexico, he said, "Oh, you're a surrealist." And she said, "I didn't know until Andre Breton told me that I was a surrealist." Anyway, there's a picture of the goddess and night and day, and Diego, who she married twice. They married for a while, and then they split up. He was a twin, and so they split up, and then they got back to married again. Now, this is, I think, one of the only artists that I can think of where the husband was more important than she was when they got together, and now she's much better known than she is. There they are after one of her operations. And when she first lived with Diego, she cut all her hair at the time. Now we're moving on to Clara. I looked at how to pronounce her name. And she was also affected by the war. She was Jewish, and she and her partner, a woman, moved to the Isle of Jersey. She was French, and they moved out to the Isle of Jersey thinking they would be safe. Instead, the Germans took over the Isle of Jersey. And they did propaganda, and so they were arrested, and they were tried, and sentenced to be murdered. But the the army, the British army liberated them just in time. I think they were about a week from being killed. But anyway, what she did is she did photography, she did sell portraits too, like, yeah, but she did it with photography. And she played a lot with gender, back and forth. And this was in the 1940s. So it was quite a bit before, and there's another one of the photographs. Oh, back one. This is Leanne Orfini, and I've used her in several other presentations that I've had. She's again a French artist, and there's a piece of hers. I love the way she paints. I did quite a series at one point. We did a train series, and this is part of it. It is, it's really section, but it starts with them getting on the train, going to a private car. Then I haven't shown the other ones, and then at the end it shows them getting on the train. But anyway. And this is a lot closer to home. This is Kay Sage. Kay Sage was born at home in New York. And her father was a senator for the New York State Senate. Her mom and her dad separated, and she went to San Francisco with her mother. But her work is very stark and very protected. That was all I saw Street City, the first one. I don't have a title for this one. And this one is called Danger Construction Ahead. That's some of her childhood in Rome as a mother. They traveled, and then she came back, and she lives in San Francisco, had trips to Europe. She went to the Corcoran School of Art, and then she ended up in Paris and New York. She married Yves Tanguay, and they settled in Connecticut. Dorothea Cannon. She lived from 1910 to 2012. She was 102 when she died. Actually, many of the surrealists live into their 90s, so if you want to live a long time, she was born in rural Illinois and moved to Chicago. She said nothing, and this, the quote was, where nothing happens, this is rural Illinois, where nothing happens but the wallpaper. And so these are sheets of wallpaper being torn off the walls. This was called The Witch. And I don't know if you can see the witch is here. See that. She ended up marrying, see if I can get two more things. This had something to do, the title had something to do with potatoes, and we were wondering, Mary Rose and I, who was potato bugs. And the man that you saw, the 20-year-old, ended up marrying. She married Maximus. I think they separated. He also went back with Leonora Carrington for a while, and then back and basically. They said he was very young. And this is Dora Maar. This picture was taken by Man Ray.
Oh.
And when Pablo Picasso walked in Man Ray's studio, he saw this photo. And he picked it up and he slipped it under his arm and he walked out. 10 years later, he met her. And she became his muse. They lived together for 8 years. She was a photographer though before that. and she had her own business. And, she photographed, Picasso's Guernica. And that's how we got to see all the stages that it went through. But she had her own photographic studio before she met him. And, these are some of her photographs. Not this one, this was done by Man Ray of. Yeah. But when she was with Picasso, he said photography is not, a painting is a superior medium. And photography is not high art, so you have to paint. And then he left it. This is Ubu, Air Ubu it's called. They don't know exactly what it was. They think it might have been the embryo of an armadillo that was in a bottle of liquid or something, but that was one of the pictures. So she had a nervous breakdown and she left and she went into a psychiatric ward. When the picture, the crying woman was done by Picasso, that was a picture of her. When she came out, he evidently felt guilty or something. He bought her a house and she started painting. She gave up photography and she lived at the house in Spain for a long time. So she passed away. This is Merritt Oppenheim, and this is the fur-covered teacup and saucer. What happened was, again, she was eating and dining, and I believe it was Picasso that walked in while she was dining, or she walked into the, while they were eating, and she had on a bracelet that had fur on. They said, I think you can put fur on anything. So she did. She came out, put it on the teacup and the spoon. And those are two high heels tied together there. This is what she became known for. And so she was a little disappointed that this is the only thing she became known for. And it's always with young. Is it the metropolitan or the modern one? Modern, yeah. So that's her, and this is her. And that's one of the paintings she did. Unfortunately, this one didn't go to record. It's so inspiring. And this is Gertrude Abercrombie. Gertie was supposed to be quite the person. She was born in Chicago and she lived there. She was born in Texas. Her parents were traveling opera singers. And so she was born in Texas, but they went back to Chicago where they lived and where she lived. She was from the poor thing. And one of the things she loved to do was listen to jazz. And when the jazz musicians would come, the black jazz musicians would come. This is the time when a lot of the hotels in Chicago would not let them go into the hotels. So she used to open up her home, and they used to come about every few weeks. She did portraiture for a while, which is nice. And then she kind of got interested in nighttime photos, in flying saucers and the metaphysical. So this is another one of her nighttime photos. Now the next picture I'm going to show you, for some reason on this television, didn't show up well. But give me a minute. That's Dizzy Gillespie with it. Like I said. This is called Gertrude's Bounce. If you have any questions, or if I can answer them. We put all this together, since we were there.
Oh, God.
Is there, can you make a generalization about the difference between the female surrealists and the male surrealists, or not really?
I think more of the males was stuff like Andre Berthold rules that they had. We had to do this and that. We wrote the surrealist manifesto. And they seem to follow him now. There were a lot of shows done, surrealist shows done in London and in Paris and in New York. And many of them were the men, but also you can see a lot of women wanted to do this that were involved. The ones that were accepted were the ones that had figured out what was the men. But then there were like the Italians that ended up surpassing. Well, I would say that they're not the same. They're not the same. If you look at, I mean, in one picture back here, it looks like it was sure. So that. Okay, you see how I go back. And one of the portrait of the woman and with a wall in the back. Oh, okay, there I go back. But that was. So that kind of reminds me of the picture of that. But the ones that, the first person, they are Carrington, they're huge. And I don't know about their active size, but what they show, all these different things. And her book is over there. And you can see that all of her paintings are like that. They're not thin. And they said she worked on it because of dreams and because of thoughts she had. So I don't think they are the same. I think they're quite a bit different. I mean, I think of the bowler hat. I think of Dallas, watches. I think of Picasso. But Guernica was, as far as I'm concerned, was the realist thing. It was very real, because you know the story about it. The German decided to fly out with mom, so they took them to the town. Called Guernica, and they loved it practically with mom. Just to try it out. This was, they were not fighting against it in the arms there, but. And he was so upset by it, finding it out. He started doing it, he did it with newspapers and everything. And completed it in like 3 or 4 weeks for him.
It's huge,
Yeah, it is huge. It was at the honor for a while.
Yeah.
You see it over there. Are there any questions on Zoom?
Yes, if you have a question, I think you can unmute yourself and just ask your question. Or you could put one in the writing section. Prefer you just ask it, please. You must have something to ask because it was too exciting not to ask something.
Judy, you mentioned one other women artist, work with very architectural.
Yeah,
Who is that? I like the word.
Kate Sage from Albany, New York. Kate Sage, S-A-G-E. She was from Albany.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Wait 1 second.
They were all painted before the government complex and all that, but it reminds me of that a lot.
Okay. We have a question here.
Yeah, Betsy, I can hear you very clear, but I can't really hear the speaker all that well throughout the whole thing. I wanted to know if she can repeat the description of the last picture where the woman and the man are, and they're chopped up on the top of the screen. The picture, I believe, after the one that's showing now.
Yeah, that one was Gertrude Abercrombie and Dizzy Gillespie, and she was the one that allowed Black entertainers, the jazz musicians, to stay at her home when they weren't allowed in a lot of the hotels in downtown Chicago. And they'd come through about every 2 weeks and she'd put them up in her house. So the music that I was playing happened to be a song that was written about her, and they said it's called Gertrude's Bounce, and it's about the way she walked.
what year was that?
40s, I would say, because it happened throughout.
Thank you.
Most everything happened, well, Dada started in 1916, and then Surrealism started in about 1920. And then between then and 1930, it was kind of flourishing, beginning to come up. And then the World War II was starting, so there was a lot of things that were happening. World War I is when Dadaism started, and it was interesting because the German and the French actually went to Switzerland, and they were the opposing forces, but the artists went to Switzerland so that they wouldn't be involved with the war. And that's where they started Dada, and Surrealism grew out of Dada. It was more about dreams. Also, if you think about it, it was the same time when psychoanalysis was getting going on. Sigmund Freud was writing a lot, and that's why the dream theory and everything was being explored, their dreams and their thoughts, and that came about with surrealism too, was exploring the dreams rather than the real, looking for the surreal, the hyperreal.
Are there any more questions? Anyone make a statement?
I just think it's wonderful to explore this particular group of women because it's sort of a unique art historical factor.
I try to fill in my blanks.
I
Fill in my blanks. I try to, when I realized that I didn't know as many. I knew them, but not as surrealist women artists like Frida Kahlo. I knew in Claudia Kahlo and Leon Orfini. I used both of them in my lesbian artist one. Leon Orfini was bisexual, and but I knew a lot of them from other things, but necessarily, or as women artists, but not necessarily as surrealists. So I found about 20, but I only had 3 days to get ready, so you ended up with 10.
10 good ones.
And I plan on going back and finding out about the other 10 and filling in a lot on these.
And that's all that Oppenheim did.
No, she painted afterward, but she did
more before, I think, too.
Yeah, she did. She did more of the. Yeah, I think she did. If you know anything, please say it.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, no, because I know. The reason I chose surrealist women artists is because most of the people I'm speaking to
sort of admired her because, and then I didn't know that Picasso brought on that fur up.
Yeah, he did.
That was around the time that Duchamp showed the urinal and all the found
Yes,
objects.
yes.
They looked at
Yep.
art and then.
Yep.
Because MoMA did have an exhibit that showed those types of
Did
pieces.
they show them together?
And they included her color.
Yeah.
At one point in Binghamton High School, we had the urinal was one of the things that the kids had painted on the wall. You were asked to take it down.
Oh,
Not,
they don't like ready-made. Yeah. I like Duchamp a lot, but he didn't say he went and played chess rather than stay with art, which I'm very disappointed. He was a great painter, and so were his brothers, cousins. I don't know. They were all famous at one point. Anything more?
He was also involved in Cubism, right? The lady descending
The staircase. Yeah,
one of those.
Yep.
Shown always in the Cubist.
he didn't produce that much.
Yeah.
I made a small miniature. If you go to Philadelphia Museum, there's a big thing that you can look into. Well, I made a miniature of that. I have it upstairs. Just a little thing. You look into it and see. It's not really a person, but it looks like a woman reclining, and they women reclining there, but it's not.
Interesting.
Yeah. Philadelphia has a number of this. Yep, some of the broken glass pieces.
Yes.
Yeah. Judy, this was wonderful. Thank you.
Speak loud enough.
Oh, just saying to Judy. Well, hopefully I'll be able to fill it out a little bit more in the future. That sounds great.
Thank you, Judy. I just want to make a little picture at the end. We are in the process right now of accepting some applications for exhibiting members. And the deadline for that application for our round is going to be on September 1st. On September 10th, we're going to be voting on them. So if you, or if you know someone else that might like to be an exhibiting member, give us a call. Go to our email. Email, yes. Call, email, walk down here, send me a letter. It would all work. Okay?
Our next show.
Speak for it.
Okay, I can talk about our next show. It's gonna be Mary Rose. And what she'd like to do is, it's kind of a retrospective of her work, but she's going to every Saturday at 2:00 do a demonstration. And one Saturday it will be woodcuts in the printing. Another Saturday it will be collage. Another Saturday be watercolor. So please come for the demonstrations, because you should be doing them 2:00, probably 2 to 3 each week.
And last but not least, it's not very far from Christmas, and we have our holiday show coming up. You need to be a supporting member, but not an exhibiting member. So if you or your friends that have got some paintings, drawings, sculptures you'd like to submit, crafts, yeah.
What about one more
Oh.
thing?
Speak
Well,
to-
today's at the end of the month.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I can also give a plug to the fact that with Mary Rose's show, we're having the Luma paintings here. And this year, the Urban League has the kids doing work. And that's gonna be shown on the weekend of Luma, the 8th and 9th. And it'll be back here and we'll have all the Urban League kids' pictures of it.
So you can tell it's gonna be busy here.
September will be very busy. And please come on Friday and Saturday, the 8th and 9th too, besides first Friday. Come here first and then go out and watch Luma. Should be fun. It's one of the buildings is gonna be Tom's over here, across the street. That's where it's gonna be projected on, like it was in the first movie.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you all for coming.
Okay, thank you for coming. Goodbye. Happy with your art. And